All right, so we know we like to talk Leafs on this on our network, and it's always a big topic. We always get a lot of good interaction and such. So we're like, we want to make this a focal point, but we also want to give it a cool name. And if anybody catches my hits on Rob Mike Richards on Saga 960, we have what we call 10-minute misconduct with Coach Frank. So you know what? We're gonna bring that here to our show. We're going to do this 10-minute misconduct. Anything we want to talk about, we'll make it Leaf centric. But I think we also have an important uh, an important event that happened on this date about 24 years ago, and I guess I'm giving it away with my background right now. But let's let's save that. Let's get into some Leaf talk. For the past week, we're going to change the tune a little bit because last week we talked about pretty much selling the whole team, trading the whole team. But here we are, fast forward a week later. They coming off a loss to the Kings. Leafs are 5 or 6. Joe, Rob, what has changed, or has anything changed in your mind, coming from where we were last week to where we're sitting this week with this team? The makeup, the way they've played, anything that you can think of. Like, what has anything changed at all? And what would the outlook be moving forward into this week with going into Philadelphia?
Positive for me is, and it's funny enough because I ripped on the power play last week, and all of a sudden it went 5 for 10. It's now ranked much higher in the league. I think it was up to 12th before yesterday's game against the Kings. So the power play is doing a lot better. That's a positive. As a negative, I still think they're giving up way too many chances. Last year felt like they had cleaned up a lot of that stuff. Much better structured defensive team. I don't know if it's the forwards not helping out or the defense is just taking too many chances, but even their in zone coverage in the defensive zone doesn't look great for me. They had a couple big wins this week for sure, but like the Boston win specifically, if Jack Campbell doesn't play great in that game, they could easily lose that game, even though they scored 4 goals. So the defensive zone coverage and their defensive game in general just needs to be cleaned up. And I don't know if they have. It worries me if they even have the personnel to clean it up. Could we potentially be seeing the slowing down, the decline of Jake Muzzin or TJ Brody as well? Or did they have just really, really great years last year? I don't know. But as of right now, they might need to acquire if they want to be contenders and be considered contenders, adding like a top 4 defenseman to kind of shore things up again. Because I'm not sure if, Justin Hall was in that top 4 before, and now he's not. Do you trust Sandin or Liljegren to be in the top 4 as of right now? No, I don't. But we shall see.
Yeah, I think there's one thing I wanted to touch on there was the personnel. My fear right now, and this is also a shot at Leafs Nation, because, we can't have it both ways. The last 14 goals have been scored by the Big Four, right? That's great. Like, we're paying them. The Leafs are paying these players all this money to produce. They're producing, but yet now it's not good enough because they're not getting any support from your Kerfoots, your Richies, your Engvalls, etc., etc. You can't have it both ways. This team is top heavy. We knew it. They're performing. The other guys are not. But if they're not getting the depth scoring, that's a problem. Listen, it becomes a problem when you get injury trouble. Okay? Then it's an issue. Yes. If these guys go down and you're not having depth scoring, that's an issue. But as of right now, if they're winning games and the big guys are scoring, sorry, I don't see a problem right now. And that's just me, but I really could care less if Richie's not scoring, if Simmons is not scoring. Be great. It'd be fantastic. But I'm more worried about a guy living up to $11 million than a guy trying to live up to 2.5 or 1.5. So that doesn't work for me. So we got to chill, when we're talking about how this team is made up and expectations. Because right now, I've changed my tune a bit from last week as well. I'll give credit where credit is due. Big Four stepping up, and I'm okay with that.
I think I've said that there are ebbs and flows in a season. This is still a good team, and this is just a run that we were expected. They're still only at 7-5, which is where they They should probably be a little bit better than that. But there's just ebbs and flows in a season. The one thing that I noticed is that in the press conferences, first of all, Keith is not sounding as positive, and he's sounding like he's almost passing blame across to the players, where it's almost he's putting it on them. Nobody is taking accountability except for Jack Campbell. He's the only one that comes out, and after the Kings game, he's like, yeah, I cost us the game. I let in a few goals. I haven't heard anybody else be an adult and take accountability for any of their mistakes. It's like
What do you want him to say, Rob?
But we're not good enough. We caught, like, he's saying I cost us a game. I've never heard
said that. They've said it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Our effort's not good enough.
I've never heard one of them say I cost us that game. I've never heard it, not once. But the goalie has to come out and say it. The one guy that shouldn't have to come out and say it. I think that's a problem, that it speaks to this team, and that Jack Campbell is a super likable guy. I don't know about the rest of this team. I also hate this core 4 score that they're talking about. I think that hearing that, you're risking isolation from the rest of the group. We know that this is a very top-heavy team, but if you're isolating and saying the core 4 score, I don't like the name. I don't like it. I don't think it does anything for the team. It seems like it's an outside thing done by the media, but I'm not a big fan of it. That's one thing that I don't really like about that.
I hesitate to call him the core 5 now, because Riley makes 7.5 starting next year, so he may have to be considered there.
It doesn't sound as good.
Joe, what do you make of these reports? And it looks like it could happen at any point, but the fact that you just saying that they need defensemen, yet Dermott and Haller, either one of them, are probably on the block to be traded somewhere else. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at the depth chart, and we're not really, the Leafs aren't, they don't have a bunch of defensemen ready to take those spots. So obviously there's a method to this madness here, them trying to trade one of their top 6 defenders. Like, what's going on there?
I'm trying to think of what they'd be looking to acquire with trading one of those guys. Would it be another defenseman? Would they have to add on top of what they are trading away to acquire that other defenseman? I don't see a trade really happening at the moment. I got to be honest. I don't see it happening, especially because, like you just said, they don't really have a lot of depth at that position. It's not like, they could run into an injury next week, and then what? You're calling a guy up from the AHL. Who is it? Manel,
Alex
Gretzky, right? So
yeah.
I would just keep the 7, rotate a couple of them in here and there, because you're going to get injuries. You're not going to stay healthy the whole year, and it's better to have some depth there. So I wouldn't be trading any of them away unless it is to acquire a better defenseman in return, but then you'd obviously have to add something to that.
And you're going to have to find salary cap space too, no? Is the salary cap not going to be an issue for this team?
Yeah, and I think, reading reports, apparently, I wouldn't really call it a bidding war, but there is considerable interest in Hall over Dermott. And really the return, what they're looking for would, and I mentioned this last week, would be almost like a pseudo Bogosian replacement and a prospect or pick. So it would be bringing a guy in, but also a trade like this would be able to free up some cap space. So now with, let's just say a deal like that happens with Mikheyev on LTIR, with Mrazek on LTIR, you're accumulating some cap space, could be used to make a deal. Could be another deal moving forward, and also losing Leaf legend Michael Amadio on waivers opened up some cap space as well, and a contract spot. So, I just kind of try to put the pieces together, but it could be almost like a move to make another move, essentially. So,
does he get to come into the alumni box when he retires from?
I believe so.
Good. I'm happy for him.
I don't know if he gets the jacket, though.
I don't know if he gets the jacket. It depends how many Moores the Sioux people are creating in a given week. So,
when I think of great Leafs, I think of that like 90s era. And I thought that some of the wrestling back then, just to bring up the Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, I love the wrestling from back then. And the Montreal Screwjob is obviously what we think of. But when I think of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, I think of the Iron Man match, which is probably, I hated the ending, but one of my favorite matches, probably the best match I think I ever watched. Do Do you think that that is the best match in wrestling history, or in WWE, WWF history?
I don't remember enough matches or know about enough matches to accurately answer that question.
But you do know the Iron Man match, don't you?
Of course, yeah. And I don't know if it's the best match I had ever seen, but I will give them the most credit because doing that for an hour and keeping someone's attention for an hour is really, really tough to do. For me, I still really, really like that Rock Hogan match at WrestleMania 18 in Toronto because I was there and I felt the electricity in the building, and it was.
I was there too. There's a lot of choices, Rob. For me, it's always going to be Steamboat, Macho Man, and WrestleMania 3, but I'm dating myself there. But the thing about the screw job, it's funny because I actually remember where I was watching it, and if the idea was to capture an audience, they definitely did it because I remember when that happened. And my dad was walking by. I says, "Dad, you never believe what happened. You know, it for real. This happened." Oh, what are you talking about? For nothing's real. Nothing. Everything's fake. No, Dad, but it's like it's almost like the boy that cried wolf. You know the story when you say it so many times, like no one's gonna believe you anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Dad, it's really happening.
It's happening.
It's actually happening. It's real. So yeah, you're full of shit. These guys are all buddies in the back. They're crushing beers in the back. No, he just spit on Vince McMahon. And that was
It's part of the show. It's part of the show.
It's all part of the show. This was not part of the show. I really wish they had the camera on in the dressing room after when Bret punched McMahon, and McMahon actually ends up on off the record a week or two later, and he had the black eye, and like, oh, that was pretty cool. But it's makeup. It's makeup. It's all meant to. No. So that's what I remember most about that. But just think about that event and how much it changed the course of wrestling. Like, it'll never happen again. Like that was like it was on mainstream news, obviously Canadian news, but like it was one of the things where it actually crossed over into like mainstream because obviously Turner owned TBS and TNT and outlets and CNN and all that kind of stuff. So it actually like was out there like, holy shit, this really happened. And the fallout from that. So, and then, we went on to see back with WCW and the whole NWO stuff and Shawn Michaels. Actually, Shawn Michaels really didn't last too long after that because he had the back surgery.
The injury,
but it really was the kind of like the intro into the Austin 316 era, right? So that was really the Attitude Era being born at that time, right? So it's just an amazing part of wrestling history. I'll never forget that. And 24 years ago, this week or today, whatever, but this week is wow, just happened like that, man. Just it came up to just out of nowhere.
It makes us feel old, but it really started the biggest, like, because I don't even think people realized that McMahon was the owner. I didn't know. I thought he was a commentator, and then it started the McMahon turn. No, it turned him from this like
Mr. McMahon.
It turned. That was what, and you can say, hey, Austin, but it was the the boss that went bad, and then you had Stone Cold that kind of it was what all basically workers who don't like their bosses kind of visualize. The last thing I want to say about those two, Bret and Shawn, is that usually in we can feel chemistry. Like if you have chemistry off screen in a movie, on screen you're going to bring that on. Those two guys hated each other. I think they liked each other at first, and then eventually had their problems. But man, did they work really well together. Two guys that could both go and unbelievable chemistry. You could feel it, and which is surprising that off the. It's just a testament to how professional those two were. That the off the out of the ring they hated each other, but in the ring just to go an hour and to keep people engaged is just unbelievable.
Just imagine if they liked each other. Right?
Exactly. But I guess wrestling's the one where you kind of have these they have good chemistry, and then behind the scenes maybe they don't like each other or so.
Well, he was not liked. Shawn Michaels was not liked at all back there. So he was looking over his shoulder constantly, and that's what happens, when they get the drugs and the booze involved and stuff. But like when you're constantly looking over your shoulder, And guys like the Undertaker, who really ruled that dressing room back then, wants to literally like rip off your head and shit down your throat every night. Like that's not a good sign. So and I mentioned to you when Bret Hart left, guys who were with Shawn Michaels at the time, like Ravishing Rick Rude, who was his manager, left as well. That hurt the storyline. And he was again, another piece of history. He was the only guy to be on both Nitro and Raw on the same day, which is like that'll never happen again.
Will never be done again.
How did that even happen? How was he
so
on
Raw back then was pre-taped, so they tape weeks in advance. So they would have taped Raw the week before, I want to say, and Nitro's always live.
Yes.
What I used to love about Monday Nitro, Joe, is Nitro used to start at 7:57 Eastern, always 3 minutes before Monday Night Raw. And what Eric Bischoff was known for, the guy was like a genius. He actually would give the results of Monday Night Raw on his show, so you wouldn't have to tune into Monday Night Raw, because Nitro is live, always live, 3 hours. And he would give the results of Monday Night Raw on Nitro, so you didn't have to tune in. I thought it was great. So
how did he find out the results?
It was pre-taped.
Pre-taped.
So they knew
Raw was always pre-taped.
Okay, but how did he get the footage to know who won?
No, not footage. It's on the internet.
Or even somebody goes there
telling them. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't realize Raw was taped.
Oh yeah.
At that time it was. Sometimes it was. Until Raw started going live, they were forced to go back live. Yeah. So that's what happened. So Ravishing Rick Rude, who was part of Degeneration X at the time with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Chyna, was on Raw that week. Again, part of the storyline. And then as soon as Nitro started, the night after the Screwjob happened, stupid thing here, WWF forgot to renew Rude's contract because they knew it was up. And he gave them their words like, yeah, I'll be back. And sure enough, didn't sign anything. Bischoff swooped underneath, gave him a contract, and he started off Nitro with the NWO in the ring. So while he was on at the same time on Raw, he was in the ring on Nitro at the same time. Again, it'll probably never happen ever again.
I believe I heard a story too about HBK that he did not want to drop the belt to Austin, and the Undertaker said, "If you don't, we're gonna actually fight for real." In the back, and
I'd probably see that. Yeah, I could definitely.
He got his gloves ready, so and that's what kind of forced Shawn to. But Shawn, I think all those guys can kind of get a little bit diva-ish. I feel like being the guy, it's a very paranoid business. It's obviously scripted, so anybody could be the winner. Anybody could kind of take that number one spot whenever the boss wants it to. But
yep,
that's a lot of wrestling talk. All right. Only here can we go from the Leafs to wrestling. Only here.
10-minute misconduct
you had.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that was awesome. We'll see you on the next one.
Like and subscribe.